Hey guys, welcome back to Rebel Vlogs. Today we are interviewing Mike Chiesa. God damn it, I knew I was going to fuck it up. I'm just going to leave that in there because I always mess it up. It's called Mike. Anyway, if you don't know, Mike is the number 9 ranked lightweight in the UFC. He is fighting on UFC 223 in Brooklyn, which is the fight card that I'm also on. So I'm pretty excited. We get to talk about his fight right now. I'm going to ask him about his last fight, everybody knows about his controversial submission against Kevin Lee, and I'm going to get to know Mike a little bit better. He's going to tell us some special things at the end of the interview. So, first of all, thank you for doing the interview, Mike. How are you feeling today?
Feel good. Just it's been a pretty good camp so far out here in Vegas. I decided to pull up my roots out of Spokane, Washington, and come down here for 8 weeks. I've done a few like half camps out here. And it was always when I was fighting lefties. So I'd come down to Syndicate, come down for like a month, and I'd go to the fight. And I've never lost. I've trained in Vegas. I've never lost when I fought in Vegas. So once the UFC PI came to fruition, I figured it was just a good move for me to just come down here and do my whole camp. And it's nice because I actually have like my coach from back home and some of my main teammates are coming down here. So everything's going good so far.
That's awesome. You still have 5 weeks, is that correct?
Yep. Still got 5 weeks and some change, so feeling pretty good, feeling pretty confident.
It's probably too early to ask about, the weight cut, but how's your diet? How's that going?
Everything's going good. I'm a little bit ahead of schedule, which is nice. So I'm waking up in the mid 80s, so everything's just good. I'm a big lightweight, so everybody's always has a little concern or question about my weight. Like, hey, how much are you weighing nowadays? I'm just like, my weight's in control, real normal, and things are just going real smooth right now. I'm pretty happy.
So we're here at the Performance Institute in Las Vegas. If you don't know, it's an amazing facility where athletes can come and train for free. They can eat for free. There's sleeping pods. There's recovery. Anything you could think of that an athlete might need, it's here. It's amazing. So let's talk about that real quick. What's your favorite part about being in the Performance Institute?
The one thing I like about it the most is the one thing that a lot of fighters struggle with, including myself, is we're our own worst enemies. We overwork ourselves. We don't listen to the coaches we're comfortable with. So back home, I have a lot of respect for my head coach Rick Little and my head strength coach CJ Taylor. But if they tell me like, hey, you should probably take a day off or something, I usually don't listen. I have too much of a comfort zone in here. You got guys that, Bo Sandoval, he worked at Michigan for like 8 years, coaching like all the wrestlers for Michigan, and they have a phenomenal program. He's worked with like all the Olympians in the combat sports, so with like judo, wrestling, taekwondo. So, when these guys tell me to push, I push. When they tell me, hey, you need to chill, I'm going to listen to them. You know what I mean? Because I look at their credentials, I look at what they're doing, and they're masters of their craft. And so, I listen to them. And so, not that my coaches back home aren't masters of the craft as well. It's just like, I'm very comfortable with them. So sometimes I have no problem, pardon my French, tell them to fuck off. I'm going to work out again. So here I listen to them. I do what they say to a T, and it's really working out for me.
That's awesome, and I can understand how you would listen a little bit more because even today I was educated on a lot of things I didn't know about nutrition, VO2 max testing, and a lot of things that they say, they can literally show you it's backed up by science and it's backed up by their, technological devices. The Omega Wave, I just learned about it right now. It can tell you when you're overtrained. Your coach might tell you something like that, but these guys have numbers right in front of them. So I can understand that. Okay, conversely, what might be one bad thing about being at the Institute here?
One bad thing is the cafeteria, because I'm having to make weight and diet, and I walk in there and like I see my homies that are out here like working for the UFC, and like they'll just get a whole pizza from the cafeteria and dip out. I'm just like, man, wouldn't that be nice? So that's really the only bad thing I could say about this place is it's just I can't take advantage of that cafeteria right now.
Well, that's not the worst thing that could be here. I was actually thinking that something bad might be the fact that there's other UFC fighters that might be in your weight class. They might be training right next to you. Is that ever an issue for you?
Yeah, I've ran into that instance almost 2 times now. Like right when I got here, the first week I was here, Pettis showed up, and so it's kind of like we saw each other in passing, and you know, I don't care if he watches me work out. You know, he might pull out of the fight. You know what I mean? If he sees me out here getting it, he probably don't want this smoke. So it's like whatever. But you know, and it actually, I got stuck in the hot tub with him. I was hanging out with Andrew Sanchez, who I'm roommates with out here. We were sitting in the hot tub. We were actually talking about it, like how awkward it is when like fighters that are fighting each other end up in the hot tub at the same time, and sure enough, like coincidence strikes, Pettis comes walking in, and so we were all kind of stuck in the hot tub together. It was cordial, it was fine, you know what I mean? Like, not like we were like chatting each other's heads off, but I mean, we definitely were like respectful of each other, and we were all in like a big group conversation. We all engaged, so it wasn't too big of a deal. And then you know, the almost second instance is obviously Kevin Lee, because he lives out here. So you know, this is just yesterday. So today's the 27th of February, so I don't know when you're going to post this. But so yesterday, the 26th, I'm getting ready. I stop by the PI. I'm doing my stuff in the morning, and then Forrest is like, hey, you going to be here around noon? I'm like, no, I have pro practice at Syndicate. He's like, all right. So you going to be okay with Kevin Lee around? I was just like, yeah, I'll be fine. I mean, if you're good at something, you're not going to do it for free. You know, obviously he doesn't think highly of himself because he punched me at a press conference, so obviously he's cheap. But, you know, I don't give a shit. Like, I don't care if I see him in passing. I'm still going to tell him he's a fucking douchebag, but, you know, it's whatever.
Okay, well, let's transition into that, you know, your last fight, and then we'll talk about your next fight. If you guys don't know, Mike fought Kevin Lee, was back in June?
June 25th, 2017.
Yes, and I know what happened. It's very controversial, but how about you tell us what happened in your own words?
Just me in my, well, obviously there's build-up, so let me rewind. There's build-up. You know, we had our little press conference where, you know, he took a shot at my mom, or was about to, and in combat sports, there's a few unspoken rules, and one of them is you just like say what you want, but you got to leave family out of it. You know what I mean? That's just a low blow. You can disrespect me, you can disrespect my teammates, you can say what you want, but you talk about my mother, we're gonna have a situation. So he took a shot at my mom at the press conference, and I went up and I was to slap him, and he punched me. Whatever, it didn't hurt, obviously. And then we get to fight night, and I'm having a good first round. I drop him. We get in a little scramble. I drop him, I get on top of him, he reverses, gets up, takes me down, and I have this bad problem where I've given up my back in pretty much the first round of every single one of my fights. I end up giving up my back. Just a terrible tendency, really bad habit. And, you know, he capitalized, he got my back, he's got a strong body triangle, he landed some strikes, and, you know, he was threatening with a choke, and he started to strap it in. I wasn't, in my, not only in my opinion, but in my own perspective, because I'm the one in the fight, I was totally fine, nothing was going on, and I literally watched Yamasaki come in, and as he's coming in, I'm like, whoa, no, what are you doing? And, yeah, he stopped the fight like a fucking idiot, and obviously his negligence has been very, very much on display in the Shevchenko fight. That was just very, very, very bad officiating on his part. So it's just unfortunate, you know what I mean? It's one thing if you just get beat fair and square. That's the nature of the beast. That's combat sports. But, you know, to have the rug ripped out from under you by a very incompetent official is pretty unfortunate. So
Mike didn't tap. If you guys didn't catch that in the fight, he didn't tap, and the fight was called even though he didn't tap. So the decision to you know, be submitted was taken away from him basically by the referee.
Yeah, and you know, and the real sting came afterwards when Kevin went on to fight Tony for the title, and, you know, obviously he came up short, but, you know, it's really unfortunate chain of events, but at the end of the day, it's just water under the bridge. You know, hopefully him and I will get to meet later on down the road. If not, I could give a shit because I know I'm on to bigger and better things. You know, like I got a big fight coming up April 7th against a former world champion. So, you know, all that's laid to rest, and I'm ready to, you know, put my best foot forward. And this has been the best, you know, for being, you know, halfway through my camp almost. This is the best shape I've been in at this point in the camp in a long time. I'm in a really good place.
That's awesome. I'm really happy for you. And my next question was going to be, do you want a rematch, all that? But that's such a good mindset. Perfect answer. On to bigger, better things. You know, you're fighting an extremely high-profile fighter. It's going to be a great fight for you no matter what. And I think it's going to be a good challenge. And in my opinion, as a fighter, I want to fight people that are a challenge. I don't want to cherry pick. I want to test myself. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to it. Let's talk about that fight. Anthony Pettis, how do you feel about the matchup?
love the fight with Anthony. You know, obviously he's one of those guys that, you know, I'd be a liar if I said I looked up to him coming up, you know what I mean? He wasn't one of those guys to me, but he was definitely a guy I watched. He was super entertaining. You know, I was a fan for sure. You know, and then as time goes on and I progress in the sport, now it's like you get to fight those people that you kind of grew up watching and stuff. So, you know, I got a lot of respect for him. He's got a good coach, Duke Rufus, some good guys over there. Paul Felder, his teammates, is a good friend of mine. He's a cool guy. You know, so I'm just excited about the matchup. It's a former world champion. You know, it's to test myself against a guy that has that at one point had what I want. You know, ultimately the end goal is to be world champion, and that's a guy that not only got a taste of it. This guy was like one of the pound for pound best fighters in the world at one point. The only guy to ever be on a freaking Wheaties box. You know what I mean? So those are the guys that I want to test myself against. So this is just a great fight for me. Good style matchup. Anthony, you know, people kind of count him out because of the skid he's been on. I think he's 2-5 in his last 7 fights, but he's fought murders row. I mean, he's fought Poirier, he's fought Dos Anjos, he's fought Max Holloway, he's fought just, you know, some of the best and came up short. So I don't really you know, his last 7 fights and how people are saying that he's done, I'm not looking at that. I still think the guy's tough as fuck. He's gonna bring it. You know what I mean? He's got a lot of skills. You know, from the stand. Everybody talks about stand up, but I think the guy's got a very underrated ground game. His guard is fucking ridiculous. So I'm gonna have my hands full on April 7th, but there's no doubt in my mind that I'm gonna come out the victor, and I just look forward to testing myself against a guy like Anthony Pettis.
Cool, and I will be there to watch it. And I mean, obviously you can't give us the game plan, but you said he's well-rounded. Can you tell us about, you know, where you think you might capitalize, where you might be superior in any aspect?
I just think I'm going to bring a better overall package. You know what I mean? Anthony's got, you know, he's got a great, I'm not going to say he's got a striking advantage because I've come a long way with my stand-up, and I think that I'm going to give him a lot of problems on the feet. You don't believe me, just tune in and watch. But I just think that the best advantage I'm going to have is just I'm going to bring an overall better package. You know, I look to bring the best version of myself into the octagon every time I fight. And so I definitely know that this time this will be the best, most polished product I've ever had going into competition. So this is like going to be a good coming out party for me.
It sounds like you really respect Anthony, and obviously you don't respect Kevin Lee. Tell me, are you used to kind of having that like animosity, that conflict, or was Kevin Lee just a one-time thing? Do you normally just respect your opponent? And you know, tell me, is that usual? Is it just Kevin Lee?
Well, here's the thing: is when it comes to competing, I check all my baggage at the door. So whether I like you or not, whether I respect you or not, it's got nothing to do with it. I don't take any emotion with me or any feeling into the octagon when I compete. I have a very clear competitive mindset, so it doesn't matter if I think you're a douchebag or if I get respect for you. I'm going to come at you the same way every time. It doesn't matter. So, you know, Kevin's really the only guy that I've ever had, you know, I guess any conflict with outside of the octagon, but I don't take any of that shit in the octagon with me because I just think that, you know, when I'm in there competing, I'm competing. I'm not fighting. Fighting is like, you know, if I'm out on a date and someone hits the chick I'm with or something, you know, like in a situation like that, I'm gonna fight that guy, or you know what I mean. Or if you talk about my mom, I'm gonna fucking fight you. But when it comes to doing what I'm a professional at, this is not a fight. This is a competition, and I'm very competitive. I'm a really good competitor, and I always win. So it's like I just leave all that stuff at the door, and I don't have to force myself to do it. It just comes natural. When it's game time, it's game time. Everything else takes a back burner. I can continue off with the beef when we get done, but you know, I leave all that shit at the door. You know what I mean? I'm just all about competing.
I'm exactly the same way. I get asked that question all the time by random people. They always want to know, you know, do you psych yourself up? Do you slap yourself in the face? Do you hate that person? And I'm exactly the same way. It's just competition. So I commend you for your mindset. I'm the same exact way. Yeah. So, I mean, we're fighting in Brooklyn, New York. Yep. I mean, I've fought in Kentucky. I've fought in some less desirable places. Are you excited about the location at all?
Oh yeah, absolutely. My grandmother and my dad were born in Brooklyn. I'm from a very Italian family, so you know, a bunch of Guidos over there and stuff. So you know, yeah. So my dad was born in Brooklyn. My grandma was born in Brooklyn. My cousins and a bunch of people are gonna be coming to watch me. So, you know, I'm gonna be at the Barclays Center. So I'm not from New York, but I really feel like I have like home field advantage there. Just I have a lot of roots in that state. So I'm really looking forward to going there and competing. And you know, it's just going to be fun. It's my first time actually. This will be my 11th UFC fight. It's my first time ever being on the pay-per-view main card, so I'm pretty stoked about that. And you know, all in all, just like we were talking about earlier, like this is just a great card to be on. This is one of those cards that's going to be real special to be a part of. Really, like, you know, when, you know, for me, when the dust settles and I'm some crusty old fart with chest hair hanging out of my shirt and stuff, this will be one of those events that's going to be a really cool story to tell my grandkids and you know, and the kids I coach and stuff like that. So this is it's really special to be a part of it, and I'm just looking forward to seizing the moment at the Barclays Center.
I agree, and I feel almost like I am not worthy to be on the card, but at the same time, I kind of like the fact that, you know, I'm definitely one of the newer fighters on the card, low woman on the totem pole, and it almost feels like a little bit of pressure to perform well, and I do well under pressure, so I'm excited about that. I want to, you know, prove that I deserve to be on that card, so I will see you in Brooklyn.
Also, want to say shout out to my sponsors. On It, obviously, they've been a huge supporter of me for almost my whole UFC career, so I want to thank On It. I want to thank Nike Wrestling. I want to thank Tim Tam and my awesome fucking manager, Daniel Rubenstein. He's the best in the business, and I want to tell my mom that I love her.
I love that you are now the second person that I've interviewed that's done that. The first guy to ever do that was Jalen Turner. He's a Bellator fighter, and I was just like, good job, sir. Way to bring it home. Yeah. Thank you, Mike. That's the end of the interview. If we want to follow your career, obviously we're going to tune in. Well, I'll be there, but everyone else can tune in. April 7th, UFC 223, Brooklyn, New York. He's fighting Anthony Pettis. I'll be there. I'll be fighting. Tune in to see me too, I guess. But if we want to follow your career on social media, where can we find you?
Just on all my social media outlets, it's at MikeMav22, so MikeMav22.
Thanks, Mike. You're going to do great. Thanks for doing the interview.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
That's it, guys.